Well, hello and welcome everyone. I have a very special video planned for you today. We're going to be doing a houseplant tour, specifically of this area of my collection because it is so chock full of plants. It's the densest area of plants in my home. I'm going to familiarize you and introduce you to all of them. Oh, and by the way, I am Dana, aka Leafy Diva on all of my socials, so be sure to like and subscribe, and let's get right into the video. We're going to start off strong with what I like to call the Syngonium tower. I had this idea a year ago. I took about 10 to 12 Syngonium cuttings and I put them all into one pot, and this is what he has grown into. I'm super proud of this. This is actually my favorite Syngonium, the Syngonium albo, because a lot of Syngonium varieties genetically don't hold the variegation that they have when you buy them. I have experience with that. That's not the case with the Syngonium albo. This is probably my most solid Syngonium. The leaves just always perform. The leaves never come out with like really wonky variegation. They just always look really good. I love this plant, which is a good segue into another Syngonium that I have. It's right under here. So moving to the bottom row, this is my Syngonium red spot tricolor. This used to be literally at the top of my Syngonium wish list, and it grows just as easy as all of the other Syngoniums. I don't really know why more people don't have this plant, but they are still, I would say they're still rather pricey, but they grow so fast. If you sold cuttings, you could probably get your money back if you got this. I took a ton of cuttings because I was gonna do the same thing I did with my Syngonium tower, but it just didn't work out that way because there's some funky things about this variegation I'm not a fan of. This plant actually dulls after a while. You get these really vibrant leaves at the top, and then eventually they're just gonna fade into like this really dark pink. They start to look washed out. They just really don't look, the oldest leaves don't look great. Whereas the Syngonium albo, you keep that really solid variegation and you keep the glossiness and the shininess throughout the life of the plant. It doesn't fade down like this. I'm just keeping him right here. I'm gonna eventually figure out something to do with him, but he's just growing so nicely. I just kind of let him hang out in this area. Next up is the Alocasia heterophylla. I think I got him in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, like towards the end of the year. I really like the mature version of this plant. I just think it's really pretty. I don't find that this is the fastest growing alocasia. I have some alocasias that grow a lot faster than this. He's kind of a slow but steady grower, so I kind of thought he'd be bigger than this right now, but we take what we can get. Next is the Philodendron tortum. I never wanted this plant. I'm just gonna put that out there. This was never a wish list plant of mine. I thought it looked like a weed. There are ferns like this growing under my house, so I just never thought of it as like a really eye-catching plant, but I did a video with greenspaces.id, and this is one of the plants that they surprised me with. And so when I first got it, I'm like, okay, I'll grow it. And now I am so happy. Like sometimes you just have to get a plant you don't like, and then you realize, where was this plant all my life? Now I'm obsessed with it. I just think it's so pretty. When I tell you guys, I cannot wait until this gets big. I just know I'm gonna have to display this somewhere because I know that where I have it now to just not do it justice. I'm just moving on. This is my Hoya Crimson Princess. I got this plant, I think in 2021 from Walmart. It's literally still in its Walmart planter right now. Hoyas really don't need to be repotted the minute you bring them home. I mean, you can if you want to, but they can stay in the same pot for forever. They just seem to really be happy with their roots being very snug in a planter. So I don't repot Hoyas often at all. And this plant has grown so much, even though I neglect it. I tend to treat this plant like a cactus. I always forget to water it. It's one of the few plants that I still have in soil. The plants I have in soil kind of don't get as much love as my self-watering planters. I really like this plant though. So next is my Scindapsus trivia Moonlight. This is also a Lowe's Home Depot special. I got this from Lowe's actually. And he is not the fastest grower. If you want instant gratification, he looks as if he would grow as fast as those are some of the other Scindapsus variety, but he really doesn't. And that's okay though. He has these brown tips because I recently transferred him to a self-watering planter and I could not get the watering right for a while. Now that he is okay, I'm just so in love with him. I love the way that these leaves come out. He was all the way down to the floor one time, but I pruned him hard. And so you can see all of these new growth points and all of these brand new leaves here. He's about to flourish. Like look at all of this. All right, so this is one of two of my Crystallinums, but this is a very special one. He is a super mutant variety. I had no idea about this when I got it. It was just one or two leaves, and then it just started growing all these extra growth points. And now it's to the point where it's doing like 8 plants at a time during each growth cycle. Like I've been pruning the leaves back on a new growth cycle so that the new leaves have a place to go. The question I usually get is, how far are you gonna take this? Are you gonna split this plant up? I'm saying no, that is never gonna happen because we're gonna see how big she can get. Right now, she has 11 leaves. She has 11 emergent leaves. It's insane. This is my watermelon peperomia. I neglect the heck out of this plant, which is, I think, why she's still with us. It's hard to tell you things about it because I really don't think about this plant. If it starts getting ugly, I just cut it back and it grows all new leaves again. Also, it doesn't really need to be in a self-watering planter because telling when it needs to be watered is just so easy. These leaves get really flimsy when they need water. So what ends up happening basically is you just wait until the leaf can be folded like this. Like right now, she really needs watering. Put water in it, and the only other thing I do is rotate it to make sure that I keep this shape. Okay, moving back up, this big guy right here is my Anthurium Magnificum, and right now this is the largest leaf in my collection. He grows so fast. I got him back in like 2022. He did have a moment in his life where he wasn't happy. I moved him from the spot that he loved because I just didn't have the space there anymore because he was growing so fast. He rebelled to the point where I didn't get a leaf out of this plant for like 4 months. Words cannot explain. All right, so I had to move the camera back for this plant. This is my Monstera Adansonii. And if you would have told me back when I got this that it would look like this now, there is no way I would have believed you. It's hard to explain just how fast this plant has grown. I got it in a 6-inch planter and he's an absolute monster now. And I have a lot of history with this plant. He's been through a hurricane with me, Hurricane Ida. He has been through fungal infections, spider mite infections. I've learned so much about plant care from this plant. I have him on 6-foot plastic plant stakes from Home Depot. I got them and I zip tied them together so that I could get it up to this height. One point during me figuring out what I was going to do with this plant, I decided that this is as high as I wanted it to ever go. And so after that, it was just going to be maintenance on it. So pruning it, things like that. And maintenance has gotten kind of out of hand because it has to be maintained so much. So there are always these crazy vines coming from it. Also, FYI, we're getting the building fumigated in the end of February, and so I'm gonna have to move him out of the house. At that point, I'm not sure if I'm gonna bring him back inside or if I'm just gonna give him to my parents. It looks good right here, but this would look even better in my parents' house the way that it's set up. So I don't know, I'm not sure. Either way, he's gonna stay close, but I don't know how far away he's gonna go. This is my Chinese evergreen, and I'm so embarrassed because he's one of the plants I've had the longest and I completely neglect him. We're talking, I might water this plant once every 2 months. He is just so resilient that it's easy to forget that he exists. I have never had pest problems with him. Anything. I got it years ago. It was just in a 6-inch planter, so it's grown really quickly for me. It should be way bigger than this. I get surprised because I go so long without water in it. Oh goodness. And the roots, they'll completely dry out. And the minute I rehydrate them, the plants perk back up and fine. He probably deserves to be in a better home, but he's not going to a better home because I love him too much. I'm just gonna promise to take care of him. We have now made it to this area of my plant collection, and this is where some of my largest, most mature leaves are. And we are going to start off with this Magnificum. Oh, these plants are big. Oh, what's going on? Okay, a pole broke. We'll figure that out later. I'm kind of nervous, but I'm gonna hold it just like this for the rest of this part. So this is my Anthurium Magnificum Silver. I got this at the end of 2022, so I think I've had it a year now. I got this one because it has silver on it, obviously, on the EcoGeneral website. But when I got it, I don't know if you can see. Oh, goodness. The silver isn't like that bright. It's just kind of more white. And I know I'm being picky, but I'm a picky person. He has a flower on here. He has an influencing flowers all the time. He's a super easy grower. Actually, at one point, I was gonna let go of him. I'm still not sure if I am or not. I'm just gonna continue to let him grow and see what happens. All right, so next up, this is my Philodendron Paraiso Verde, and it's probably one of the more vigorous growers in my collection. This thing grows really, really fast. I got him as a plant that had just gotten acclimated from tissue culture. All he wants to do is grow. All he wants to do is grow. He actually grows so vigorously that I have had to do all kinds of things to get him out of the way of some of the other plants, because when it comes to a fight for light, he is gonna win every single time. That's how fast he grows. Also, something that you might not know about this plant is that his variegation is temperature and light dependent. So if you can get him to a warmer, higher light situation, he'll produce really, really good variegation for you, which makes mine so special because you can actually see the seasons through the variegation. If you look at the bottom, you can see where it started with this really high variegation, and then as it got colder and winter came, you can see some of the leaves getting darker and darker until finally summer comes again, or spring, and then the leaves get lighter. By the way, this plant has 3 growth points. One that just popped up a few months ago, and then 2 from cutting it last year. This next plant might confuse you. This is either a Billietiae by Adabapoense, or an Adabapoense, so I'm pretty sure it's not just an Adabapoense. Let me explain. I got this plant in the pandemic during the height of plant prices, and initially the Billietiae was the one that was on my wish list, but I could not afford it. So I saw a listing for a rooted cutting of an Adabapoense, and I got it. As I started to grow it, people were telling me that looks a lot more like a Billietiae. When I looked at both and how they were described, I realized that it was not a Billietiae. So someone was like, well, maybe it's a Billietiae and Adabapoense hybrid, which I found out that there is some conjecture about that on whether that even exists. But then more recently, someone told me that they got clarification from someone at IAS, or International Aroid Society, that there were actually multiple varieties of the Billietiae, and that I probably just had one of those. I think he said there were like 7, 8, or 9 of them. I'm not sure, but that's neither here nor there. I love the plant. I'll tell you something though. These 2 plants, the Paraiso Verde and the Billietiae of Adabapoense, they fight like siblings. Paraiso grows faster, a lot faster than a Billietiae. These 2, their leaves are always fighting to get the most light. So what I did is I turned this around and I took the Paraiso and I pulled it back and I pushed this one in front, because this grows up so fast. It shades the Billietiae out really, really fast. But he's always been very consistent. I've had no problems with him. It's just solid. I'm probably gonna have this plant forever. This plant is so close to my heart. This is my Anthurium Crystallinum, and he is my very first Anthurium. I got it when it only had 2 little small leaves on it, and I was so nervous when I took it home from the nursery that I dropped it immediately when I got home. And I was so sad and bummed about it. But since then, he has been through a lot. He also made it through the hurricane with me. He's made it through spider mite infestations. He's made it through me not knowing how to take care of Anthuriums. Most of what I learned about Anthuriums came from experimenting on this plant. Out of all my other Anthuriums, he for some reason seems to be the most prone to spider mites. Like, spider mites rarely touch any of my Anthuriums, but they love him for some reason. I moved him for like the 10th time to this area that he's in now, and he seems to really like it. I just wish the mites would leave him alone. I have so many Anthuriums, and it's just this one. It's the only one. It's crazy. When I'm dusting off and treating my Alocasias, I'm also doing this Anthurium too, because I don't know. Not even my other Crystallinum. It's right here. The spider mites don't touch that one. It's just this. It's a mystery. This guy, this is my Anthurium regale. He is the Anthurium that causes me the most stress. Well, no, that is not true. You know what? This is the 3rd Anthurium that causes me the most stress. And it's not because he's difficult to take care of. It's just because he really just isn't made for this type of climate. He likes really high humidity, and even in the wild, they don't grow really fast. So if you get a bad leaf on this one, you'll be waiting a very long time for another leaf to come. Also, the plant doesn't really like to hold more than 2 leaves at a time. I've seen some lucky people with 3 leaves on their regale, but Never three perfect looking, like never. I've never seen it. If you've seen it, let me know. I've never seen three perfect regale leaves in someone's home. I just have not seen it. He gives me maybe like 2 leaves a year. Yeah, he gives me about 2 leaves a year. One of his leaves is actually coming in now. I'm realizing that he produces a new leaf every January. It's weird. He's on the schedule. This beauty right here is my philodendron strawberry shake, and like the tortum, I did not want this to begin with. It was gifted to me for doing an event. They told me that I could have a variegated Friday, which was huge at the time, or this. And I had so many allocations, I'm like, let me try something different. I just really wasn't into variegated plants at the time. I got this in like January of 2023. I like him now, but this is probably the slowest growing philodendron I own. He's always popping up a new leaf, but it takes forever. Also, he really doesn't like water because he doesn't like growing fast. So what does he need water for? That's why I'm trying to talk in plants. It makes no sense. He's happy though. There are actually 3 plants in here. I got another strawberry shake from Green Spaces ID. So this one came from Canopy Plant Co. And then the one from Canopy, it produced an extra growth point. So that's popping up now. Even though I'm talking smack about it right now, I give this another year and this is probably gonna be one of my nicest plants. Seriously. This is Cercessus mirabilis, and I didn't know a lot going in. I've only had this plant for about 2 months, but he looks like an alocasia, but Cercessus is actually its own genus and he's from Africa. He has just this really pretty variegation, which just completely drew me to the plant. He's a bit of a mystery to me still because there really just isn't lots of care information on the internet about him. And the care information I have seen about him is like super generic. I mean, hopefully if I can get him big enough one day, I'd be happy to share his care with everybody, but I am being very cautious with this one. I just got him into pond. I have him in kind of like this intermediate step just because I wanted to be careful. He seems to be doing fine, though there is, look at the edge of this leaf. There is some browning on the leaf when I switched him over to pond. He seems to be doing pretty well right now. I just think he's still in the process of acclimating to this environment and now acclimating to this new substrate. Next up is my Adansonii aurea. I have a lot to say about this plant. This plant's taught me a lot about Adansonii because I only had one of them as a reference, and now that I have a second one that is different. For one, this needs a lot less water than you think because of all these holes in the leaves. It makes the plant look a lot larger than it really is, so it's really easy to overwater it. When it does get overwatered, it just doesn't take kindly to it. You'll start to see these edges brown up. And that's just it's really difficult. So my other Adansonii have been in soil for like a full year before I switched it over to pot. And I had the same problems in soil. Getting an Adansonii really big and lush is just getting the watering balance correct. And so I think that I do have it together on this plant now that it's in this watering container. He's in kind of a holding phase until he gathers himself together and roots out this pot more fully because I get so tired. Some of my plants grow so fast, and I know that's tough. I feel weird complaining about it, but some of the plants grow so fast that I get tired of repotting them. So I'm kind of starting to put them in larger pots than they should be and letting them rebel just a little bit because I don't like repotting plants every other month. It's just annoying, especially when you have a collection this large. All right, and the last plant on the tour is the Thai constellation. Actually, these are 2 plants. I got these months apart from each other. This was during the time in the pandemic where Thais were so hard to find and so expensive. I actually paid $120 for a Thai that had literally just come out of tissue culture acclimation. And at the time, I thought that was a steal. Crazy how much the prices have dropped on this. I cannot tell you how much stress this plant put me through in the beginning because at the time it was the most expensive plant I had ever purchased and I just thought I was gonna kill it. And so many people were telling me about how easily this plant rotted. But I eventually got him into pond, Lechuza pond, a mineral substrate that I use, and he's been okay ever since. I have both of these in rectangular self-watering planters, and I have mine crawling. A lot of people have their ties climbing. I have mine crawling because they just seem to want to crawl. They are either semi or hemiepiphytic, so they start on the ground. Well, first off, ties don't exist in nature. This is a Monstera deliciosa that was made in a lab to have all of this variegation on it. But Monstera deliciosa in the wild is a plant that usually starts from seed on the ground and then it looks for something to climb up. So it crawls across the ground until it can find something to climb up, and then it becomes like an epiphytic plant. And I actually plan on doing an entire separate video on the care for this plant and my journey with this plant because it has been long. Okay, we are done. I hope you enjoyed everything. It's crazy that I only got through maybe like half of the collection. This took hours, okay? I guess I'm gonna have to do another part to this to show you some of the other plants, but these are the main plants in this area. And by the way, this video was actually brought to you by Instagram because I put it out there. I said, I'm gonna do a video today. What video should I do? And everyone said, do the houseplant tour video. And I said, I will spend the entire day doing it and editing it and posting it for you guys. So if you are watching, thank you for your input and I hope this made you happy. Bye, like and subscribe.